But I did get a chance to test Mario Strikers Battle League. Mario Strikers Battle League comes out this Friday, June 10th. Today's June 6th at the day of recording this. There was a network test that Nintendo did. I'm starting to see Nintendo test out these games, at least like games that are meant to be played online, as we saw with Nintendo Switch Sports, and giving people the access to check out these games. And it also serves a purpose for Nintendo, for them to test the network, make sure that everything's fine before release. And it's at no cost to the player, so it gives you a good opportunity to check out the game, play a demo here and there, get acquainted with the game, and see if it's a right fit for you. I think it's a great practice, in my opinion, because it's free, gives Nintendo the ability to test the network and make sure that they have a smooth release. When people actually play the actual game, you don't have servers crashing and whatnot. But I will say that there were a few issues with the game. But first, let me go through the pros of it. It is a very fun game to play in general. It's chaotic, it's fun. If you ever played any of the past Mario Strikers, you already know where you're trying to get to. You're gonna get into. I mean, even if you played any other arcade soccer sports game, you're gonna enjoy this. I was a big fan growing up of what was that name? What was the name of that game? Sega Soccer Stars or something like that. It was a pretty intense soccer game. It was an arcade soccer game for the GameCube. And I enjoy that game so much, and that's what kind of got me into Mario Strikers as well. And this game is no different. Like I'm excited that Nintendo is embracing more of the violence in these sort of arcade games. I mean, I think it's a little bit necessary if you're going to be releasing a Mario Strikers for it to be a little bit more violent than other Mario sports games, because it is a very physical game, and it makes sense that you can tackle Yoshi straight into an electric fence. I don't know, it's just amazing. It's hilarious to me. Don't worry, nobody dies. All right, nobody dies, not that I'm aware of. But it is an extremely fun game in general. That's if I was to give a gist of it, it's a fun game. It is just a fun game, and I can't wait for it to release. There were minimal connectivity issues when I played during the play test. There was almost no lag. I think there was only like one hiccup here and there. There were minimal graphical issues. Graphics are some of the best that I've ever seen in a Mario sports game. I mean, don't get me wrong, Golf Rush was also pretty nice looking, but I think this one is one of the better, if not the best, Mario sports game has ever looked. Mostly due to this being developed by Next Level Games. As we know, Next Level Games are a developer. They're a first-party developer for Nintendo, and famously, they're the ones behind Luigi's Mansion 3. And if you've ever played Luigi's Mansion 3, you just know how beautiful this game looks, especially for a Switch game. It just blew it out of the water. It does magic with the hardware that the Switch has for it to look just so beautiful. It's a crisp-looking game. The graphics are beautiful. The lighting is amazing. The environments, it's a great looking game. If you've never played Luigi's Mansion 3, I implore you to check it out. It is a great game. It is fun, and you won't be disappointed. So it made sense that Super Mario Strikers Battle League would look just as good. Some of the animations are one of the best. I mean, I've never seen Wario, I've never seen Luigi, I've never seen Donkey Kong express so much emotion in their animations in a while. A lot of Mario games have been very formulaic in animations and styles and all that, but this game I feel Nintendo gave Next Level games more freedom to do what they want with the characters, and I appreciate it, because some of the goal celebrations are hilarious. They're amazing. The emotions that you see in some of these characters' faces is funny, is endearing, is charming. It's great. That's one of the biggest things that I liked about this game. However, there are some cons. The controllers are not as intuitive. I will say they are a little bit challenging to pick up if you've never played this sort of game. But I think if you played even FIFA before, you might be able to pick this up pretty easily. I think it does have a little bit of a curve, to really start enjoying the game, to really start scoring goals, because there is a challenge behind that. That's not necessarily a con, it's not necessarily a negative, but I can see people kind of getting I don't know, just convinced out of checking out this game after doing the tutorial and whatnot, or playing like one exhibition match. But I assure you that once you get it, once you understand what each button does, you will not have an issue navigating the game and actually getting better with it. I mean, it does take skill, and I mean, these sort of games are skill based, so it is just exciting in that part. A con, and this is more of just the network test and the way that Nintendo did it. Although it was great and fun, I think the network test was badly implemented. They forced you to play 2v2 online with complete strangers. You couldn't play 1v1, so you weren't just the only person in charge of your team. So it was a little bit confusing at times. It made it a nightmare to figure out what character you're controlling, because each team has, if I'm not mistaken, 4 characters to control, excluding the goalie. Yeah, it's 2 people trying to control 4 characters, and at times when you're switching characters, that other person might have already selected the character you wanted, so you, in your mind, you're kind of thinking that you are controlling that person, but you're not really. And it doesn't help also that the naming conventions in the game, when you're actually playing the game, it's just numbers, and it's really confusing. It gets confusing extremely fast. I think Nintendo kind of missed the mark on this. There's no reason for the characters to not have your name, like your username, in the game online on top of them, to better see who you're controlling. It's difficult just to figure out what number you are and trying to keep that number in your head the whole time you're playing. And then once you for example, you end that match and then you replay another match, that number might change. So now you're getting confused and getting your numbers mixed. And even though it highlights the number that you're meant to be in the match, it still gets confusing really fast. It can be too chaotic at times, and at times it was a little bit difficult to follow what was going on. At times I couldn't see where the ball was. I couldn't understand what was necessarily going on. At times I didn't feel like my tackles were hitting, or I didn't think they were as responsive. And at times you were just like left in a mess. If a lot of people are trying to chase the ball, and especially in such a small playing field, it gets hectic really quick. And I know that's not necessarily an issue. I mean, it is the nature of the game. It is a very hectic sort of sport, and especially an arcade soccer game. But it got a little bit overwhelming at times. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think the only way that some of these things could be fixed is to make first of all, make the naming conventions a lot more easier to follow, and also to make probably the pitches, the actual, the playing fields a little bit larger, a little bit wider. I think it'll make everything a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, that's necessarily the only issues I have as far as gameplay. One thing I will touch upon, and I think it's mostly due to the nature of this sort of game, it's the music. A lot of the music sounded like royalty-free music. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of the remixes of classic Mario music were amazing. I mean, the Super Mario World remixes, I think there's a Luigi's Mansion remix. They all sound amazing. They're great compositions, and it actually made me really happy to hear them for the first time. But half of the time, the hard rock kind of themed music throughout the whole game sounded a bit too like dull, repetitive, monotonous, and a bit, like I said, royalty-free music-ish. It sounded as if they weren't using real instruments to record a lot of the music. I know a lot of composers, try and use MIDI instruments, electronic instruments, or computer-generated instruments. So a lot of that can be a little bit apparent at times when playing this game. It didn't take too much away from the experience, but I mean, I'm a musician, and I kind of picked that up, and music to me is a huge part of why I play video games, and it kind of irked me a little bit, just how cheesy and cheap some of the music sounded. But besides that, it's a great game. I think people are gonna have a lot of fun with it. If Nintendo fixes these little things, I hope they do. I mean, I'm very skeptical, and I don't think they'll fix them. But still, I think the biggest downfalls of this game are the naming, the way they name characters on the pitch, and just how chaotic it can be at times. It might put up some people off of the game, regardless of the lack of characters at launch and the lack of fields and pitches. I think it's still a great game. Obviously, it would have been great for there to be, like, you know, in Smash there's stage hazards. I think adding field hazards would have been a great idea. I mean, I'm already complaining about how chaotic it is, but I think instead of the items having like stage hazards or field hazards would have been a way better compromise. But all in all, I'm very excited for this game. I can't wait for it to come out, and I might be picking it up this week, if not next. So yeah.